Hello, hello, hello. Just gonna put our topic in the chat. That way if people join later, they can see it. Hi, Megan. Hello, everybody. I see Dumore is in the house. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Oh, this is so great. We're so excited to have you here. Waiting for our guest to join us. I've got my Malcolm X shirt on. We've got some fun dolls in the house. I see some teachers in the live. Woo! Just waiting on Sadie and Kirby to join in with us. I'm just going to I pinned our topic that way. For those of us who join us later, know exactly what they're jumping into. Got some Do It Now members in the chat. Woo! Let's see, waiting on Kirby and Sadie. If you're there on the live, you guys can request to join. Let's see, I can always send you a request, I believe. Shout out to Gomper School. Hello. Hey, guys.
Hi. Can you see
him? I'm going to move this up a little bit so you guys can see me. Somebody said something about my shirt. Yes, I have my Malcolm X shirt on today. Education is the passport to the future. It belongs to those who prepare for it today. Shout out to Target. Hello, hello, hello. Are we getting our video situated? While they get their video situated, I just want to welcome and thank everybody for joining us today. This is our first event of Black History Now, Do It Now's month-long series of different Black history events. We've got classes, we've got Now Talks, which are like mini podcasts, ways for you to join the conversation and be a part of the change. And then we've also got some special performances. So make sure that you head over to our link tree. You can find that in our bio so that you can see all of the wonderful events. We've got some special guests. We've got some Do It Now committee members who are going to be doing some different things. So you definitely do not want to miss out on this amazing month that we have planned. You can also check our Instagram and Facebook throughout the weekdays. We're going to be posting, according to our theme of the week, we're going to be posting prominent and amazing trailblazers, current, past, future, Black history figures. So make sure that you check that out as well. Hello! I see my guests are ready. Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Thanks for inviting us.
So I just kind of gave everybody a nice welcome to the month. I'm so excited that we were able to kick off our series for the month in this way. I think that, you know, really similarly to the quote that I just read off of my shirt, education really is at the root and the foundation of how we propel ourselves forward and how we really create change. So I think we specifically wanted to start off the month with it being education based. And what better way to do that than to be joined by two amazing teachers. And they're going to get a chance to introduce themselves right now, actually. So if you guys just want to give everybody a little background where you teach.
I'm always like so teacher oriented. So guys, let's blow up the chat. Let's get some likes going. Let's make sure the engagement is there, that you're ready. So wake up. Friday evening. So I am Sadie Foster. I am a 7th and 8th grade social studies teacher. This is my 3rd year in the district, and I've been teaching for 9 years. I teach in Philadelphia, and I am a Philly native.
Woo!
Pass on. Hi, everybody. I am Kirby Gaddis. I have been working with students for 10 years. I've been a teacher for 5. This is my 6th year. And yeah, really quick, I'm the mother of Aiden. So Aiden, you're at home watching.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know that we're going to get into our definition of Eurocentric curriculums, but do you guys want to just give really just a quick answer as to why you wanted to be a part of this Now Talk, why you felt this topic was important?
So I wanted to be a part of this Now Talk just because of the conversations that we have as friends talking about Black history and teaching Black and Brown students. Also, just acknowledging today was Trayvon Martin. Today would have been his 26th birthday. Mm-hmm. And so just thinking about how important education is, the acknowledgement of Black and Brown students, the conversation needs to be had and had often. Mm-hmm. And then I said, let's rope my friend into this, who's a K-2 teacher. She's knowledgeable of the little people and their development, while I'm a lot more knowledgeable of maybe 5th through 8th. So I think it was really important to have teachers who know the younger grades and who also know the older grades and who work with students inside and outside of the classroom. So I think it's really important that we have it as friends and that we have it on a professional platform.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very important for, especially like with my background being more of the little ones, I have a lot of those conversations with parents and other teachers of when is it appropriate? Are they too young? You know, what does that look like? So when I was asked to do this, I said absolutely, because everyone needs help in learning more of how to have these conversations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we are just so thankful to have you both here today. So it's so exciting. And for those of you who have been following the Do It Now page throughout the week, we posted a video from our Do It Now committee member, Jared Hudak, yesterday, actually. And he talked about this same topic, Eurocentric curriculum systems in America. And he talked about it from a white teacher's perspective. And so we're going to just kind of start off with the definition that he gave in his presentation. And also, if you haven't seen that, definitely after this, go and check that out, because it really is important, especially for those white educators out there, for you to hear the perspective from a white educator, and then also maybe compare it to the opinions that you'll hear from 3 Black educators. And I don't think I introduced myself. I am Aleah Conlin. I am the founder of Do It Now, and I am also a teacher in a K-8 school. So I'm going to start us off, like I said, by defining Eurocentric and Eurocentric curriculums. So Eurocentric is defined as focusing on European culture or history to the exclusion of a wider view of the world, implicitly regarding European culture as permeant. Founded on principles of colonialism and viewed through a European lens, it is also a Western or European history classes are deemed mandatory and simply titled history. And it teaches white students that they are highly valued in spaces of knowledge and power. So that's just a little bit of a background into our topic for those of you who may not really be on the forefront of anti-racist and Eurocentric curriculum training. And we're going to just kind of jump right into it, ladies. So given that definition, as I'm sure that you guys have already heard, you know, why is it important for us to discuss and to talk about, you know, Eurocentric curriculums?
So I think it's really important, one, because it's a conversation students are having. They don't see themselves in the curriculum. And as a Black and Brown teacher, I don't see myself in the curriculum either. Knowing that a lot of the way I was taught in college and even now in grad school, a lot of the research is pointing to white middle class students. And so it's important to have the conversation, because if the research, if everything is pointing to these students, when we don't see ourselves, we're not represented. And we need representation. And therefore, there's a huge population being silenced. There's Black and brown teachers that you don't hear our voices. There's students that you don't hear their voices. And as I said, students are talking about it. If you are on TikTok or Instagram, people are posting Black and brown history everywhere. And they're saying, why are we not learning this in school? Kids are questioning it. And so I think as adults, we owe them answers of why are we not teaching, the interesting facts, the crazy stories that we hear of people who, achieve great things against all odds. Why are we not hearing those stories of encouragement instead of hearing just, the sad Negro spirituals and, oh, they were slaves? No, there are empowering, those are empowering stories, but there are tons of other empowering stories throughout history.
Yeah, there's no representation, like she said. There's no, even growing up, I feel like we don't know our own culture. If we want to be honest, like, we have to go digging for ourselves. We hear about so many other trials and tribulations and how people are able to come out of it, but we're still living in what we would call, a certain slavery right now, and we have no, like, silver lining. They say this is where we are, this is where we were, and we should be happy where we are. But when you know your history and where you come from and what you already accomplished, then you're even more excited. When you're looking at voting, we knew that we couldn't vote and now we can. That's exciting. That's to know our history of that. What else have we overcame as a culture that we don't know about?
Right. No, absolutely. And it's so funny that you kind of bring up that aspect of voting, because especially in this year, I feel like when we had election day, it was a lot of the focus was really on, like, knowing the history of, like, it wasn't too long ago that your grandparents were marching, and did not have the right to do this. And that's just always my driving point, when I talk about voting with younger voters, is it wasn't that long ago or that far removed that this privilege wasn't even accessible to us.
I was going to say that's a good point, because many don't even know still today. So my family is from the Virgin Islands. The Virgin Islands do not vote for the president. So that is still a population. Puerto Rico does not vote for the president. So that's still a population of Black and brown people being silenced today. Of how come you have U.S. territories where people cannot vote? And so knowing your histories and learning about, like, the civil rights movement and the women who were on the forefront of walking door to door, walking the sharecroppers' lands to get people to register to vote. Yes, shout out to Stacey Abrams, and we need to learn more about women who are doing these things, these grassroots movements. So I can talk about voting all day long.
That's what we're here for. That's exactly what we're here for. We are here to talk about it. So my next question is this, and I have a kind of a story that I want to put along with it. But the question is, what effects does a Eurocentric based classroom have on students of all cultures? And I kind of want to preface it with this story, just because I think it'll kind of guide a little bit of you guys' responses. For those of you who may not have seen, in the Philadelphia area, there was a neighboring school to the Philadelphia district who had a young girl who posted a video speaking about, I do not have white privilege, and, please don't, address me with that kind of language, and, it's offensive. And there were a lot of troubling themes in this young girl's video. I immediately, and I saw this video earlier in the week, and I immediately, thought about this talk, because I'm like, that to me is the most important, or one of the most important reasons why we do need to be teaching Black history in schools that are not with kids of color. Because when you don't see the struggle, when you don't even have that representation around you, and then when you especially aren't taught what those struggles were, or what the differences were, and where your privileges lie in history, then you have issues like this that arise, where now you've got a whole bunch of coverage on this girl, with these horrible comments. So, I just kind of want to throw that right back at you guys. What effects to all That's a good defining point. I definitely want to talk about the effects of kids of color, but all kids, you know, what are the effects of Eurocentric curriculums or based classrooms?
We're like, where do we start? We were like, where do we start? You want to kick this off?
Oh my gosh, it just goes back to representation. And so for us as Black students and kids of color needing to see that, they need to see it as well. Like white people need to be able to see and understand as well. Because when you, how can I put it? When you go in your bubble and you're in your safety zone and your safety net, and you hear, oh, well, Black people were slaves, they could not drink out of the same water fountain. They had to go to 2 different schools. And now you're in your safety net and you see, oh, well, I just got coffee and there was a Black person in the store with me. Or I'm in school and I have a Black student. You think everything is great and fine. But when you know the history of what people are going through and what they've been through and what they're still having to travel through to this day, it opens your mind to that compassion, that empathy that is needed. Because when you don't have empathy and understanding of where someone has been, it's hard for you to cheer and root them on for where they're headed. So when you get people who have comments like that, like, oh, I don't know what white privilege is because I don't have it. No, sweetheart, the fact that you're able to say that,
you got it.
You got it.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. And then I will also just add on to that. That was great. Like, I don't even want to add on to it, but I'm just going to say this. Black history is American history.
Right.
It is. Hispanic history is American history.
Yeah.
Asian American history is American history. And why are we not learning about one another's history?
Right.
Why? And just like you said in the beginning, why is it that I have to go to an African American history class to learn more about myself, but it's not deemed important for all of us? That it should be. In my middle school, everyone had to go through an African American history class. And given our school was majority African American, but everyone was in that class. You weren't excluded because of your race. And so I think we really forget, or some, not we, because I know we are not forgiving here in this circle, but our history is American history. There is no American history. It does not start nor end without a person of color. And so I'm confused why we don't have this representation. So,
but I am happy that you said all, because that's a conversation that we had with my staff. This is the first year where I have a lot of Spanish-speaking families, and so that's their first language. And so when we bring up Black history, one, we should be learning these figures throughout the school year. But when you put emphasis on 1 month for Black children, what about the other cultures that are represented in the world, in the United States? We're supposed to be this really cool melting pot of so many different cultures in the land of the free, but we only know half, not even half, a portion of the story, and not everyone coming together. So I agree with that.
absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny, as I reflected kind of on my, learnings during Black History Month, or my experiences during Black History Month as I was growing up, I'm thinking like, oh, I remember that time I went to this museum, and I'm like, wait, no, actually my mom took me there. And then I'm like, oh, I remember that church event that we went to. And I'm like, oh, wait, actually, no, my mom definitely took me to that one. And I'm like, oh, I remember when we were, watching Roots, and we were watching, and I'm like, oh, wait, no, that was Nana. That was my mom. And, I really had to sit and think, about the times and the projects that I had that reflected on people that looked like me.
Well,
and I'm blessed to have had a culturally responsible mom and family who made that a point to show me that history, to show me, that lineage. And even still, I feel like you're always a life learner. Even still, I feel like I'm finding out things. Like I found out about Tulsa this year, the Black Wall Street. That was new to me until this year. My mom's probably going to kick my butt for saying it. She's like, I definitely taught you that. My mom do that. But
then what about those people who don't have moms that
right.
that do things like that go that deep to make sure that you know your culture? Like, even thinking for myself, my mom is amazing. She is an amazing educator. She is taught from literally first grade through, college. And so, but that wasn't an everyday conversation that we had of this is your culture. Now, she grew up in Mississippi, so she had the stories of when they could not go to the same bathroom or, drink from the same water fountain. She has those stories, but that was not our culture at the house to go to a Black History Museum. I mean, honestly, where were they?
Right.
The one in Washington just came, like, a few years ago. I mean, I've been 3 times and I absolutely love it, but we didn't have that growing up. So it's kind of like when you miss that representation at home because maybe your parents don't know it or they don't even know how to introduce you to it, and then you don't get it at school. Right. It's like, where exactly are you supposed to get it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was thinking the same thing, that historically African American History Month has been projects that you go home and do. And it's been a lot of at-home learning. And even still today, I see some teachers feel like it's just enough that I told them to go home and do a project. I've even seen teachers not display projects for Black History Month and have tons of projects for Women's History Month. And I'm saying that's a disconnect.
Right.
That students are feeling disconnect to their own heritage. That Black History Month has to come into the classroom and be more than a project. Be more on the parents working on a project. Be more than just a trip to a museum. That, like we said in the beginning, it needs to be integrated through everything we teach. Even if we're reading, are we reading a book that has characters of color? Are we reading a book that has representation? And if not, let's start switching out these books that children are reading from K through 12. Yeah. That we need to have more characters, leading characters of color. Reading male characters of color. Not just the friend, not like on Doug when he had the blue friend. Not that. But leading characters of color, and even and like I said, throughout history, no matter what you teach. I just taught the American Revolution, and I taught about people of color who were there. And even if you watch Liberty Kids, they talk about people of color who was in the Revolutionary War, who fought or who died. They even sprinkle it in everything you teach. I'll stop there.
Yeah. You know what's interesting to me too, and this is where the systemic aspect comes in, and I see Gompers chiming in on that as well, is it almost, Black history is so far removed from the curriculum in so many cases that even as a Black teacher, it feels out of place to introduce it. I find myself even stepping back, feeling like, wait, this doesn't belong here. Like, this isn't what is a part of this curriculum, and that's an internal struggle that, what do we do about, and I'm not expecting you guys to answer that fully question, but chime in on that if you feel, but we need to normalize making Black history a part of all the curriculum across the board. And like you said, a part of our community across the board as well.
And it's an everyday conversation. Like, for example, so I did bring a book. It's called Black Fortunes. And I'm just going to shout out Black Fortunes by Shamari Wills. And if we're talking about Oprah, or if we're talking about any millionaires, guess what? This book is full of them before the 1940s. And so before you get to Oprah, and before you get to Madam C.J. Walker. So she is in the book, but we love to shout, and I love her, Black here. But we cannot just say Madam C.J. Walker and Oprah, and that is the end of the story.
Right.
There's about 8 different stories, men, women, just fill with it. So if we're talking about, hey, kids, what's a business you want to think about growing up and having? If you're talking about a business class, you can shoot in some Black billionaires, some millionaires before the 1940s. And I feel like it can be flowed into any aspect. If you're talking about dance, you can think about all the women of color who were inspirational in that sense. If you're talking about math or geography or architect, we can think about a lots of people, and that involves doing the research. It involves doing a little bit of work. And it's not like I can pull this from my head just because I'm Black. I have to do a little bit of research too.
Because we have the same education that you got.
Yeah.
to figure it out too. And that was one of the things, like I know when I was in the 6th grade, that was one of the projects that we had to do. She told us, she gave us a list of who we could not do it on. We could not do it on Oprah. We could not do it on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We could not, she gave us who we could not do.
Wow.
So it forced us to go outside of our comfort zone and of what we always know. And so that's one of the things too, like step out of your box, step out of your everyday. These are not like, we learn the same 5 people every year. You eventually get tired of hearing about the same 5 people. So then therefore, you're now tuned out. Now when you get to middle school, you're tuned out because you did all the projects on the same, reoccurring people. And so that kind of takes the fun out of Black History Month again.
Right.
Because what's new about it? Okay, that's where you start. That's where, now that I'm thinking about it, that's kind of where you get the mentality like, okay, you guys were slaves, now you're not. Like, let's keep thinking about it. That's where you get it because they're not learning anything new.
Right. Right.
But that's the creativity of teachers. I'm sorry, Aleah, but the creativity of teachers. Because even this year, I did a new Black History project where students are interviewing their families and they're having conversations about Black Lives Matter. And the whole purpose of that is to create that intergenerational relationship, that Black village, the Black community. Because I may not always sit down and talk to my great aunt, but how about now this project is you need to interview your great aunt. You need to talk about maybe their life. And if you don't have a great aunt, they can interview a cousin that's just a little bit older and talk about what does Black Lives Matter mean to them. So not only am I teaching public speaking, but now we have a Black family or Black village getting together. And it doesn't have to do with history. It's about Black families and Black villages. My next class, they're researching their birthdays. Now, of course, I got to do Dr. King and Malcolm X. But what historical event happened on your birthday?
Right.
And so we had some people.
That.
And if you go,
awesome.
But if you go, it gives you different things like Phyllis Wheatley, who was a Black poet in the 1700s. And then we have senators and judges. And then you get into Black Wall Street. And students learn more than just the Civil Rights Movement. I know a lot of you saw that timeline. The Civil Rights Movement was a fragment of time, a very important fragment of time. But we have history before, and we have history still being made today.
Right.
So for my school, I'm filming videos of people who are the first between 2008 and 2020. There are so many Black firsts within this generation that you would not know about. That's not on the news, that's not seen, that students still need to know about. Think about the arts, think about, poets, and think about Tyler Perry. Why are we not talking about someone opening the first studio? Like, are you?
Right.
But it's 2020, and you're telling me someone opened up the first Black-owned studio?
Yeah.
On slave land where a Confederate army was?
Yeah.
That's a project. That's a project.
So, shout out. If you're watching, Tyler, good job.
Good job. People afraid to take those ideas that students can do. History is still being made today.
Right.
And instead of telling your kids to go and research the 1800s, the civil rights, what about things that are happening right now?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's an excellent point. And that kind of goes back into kind of that reflection point, and like Kirby said earlier, that empathy work in
understanding where people have been and where they're going. And like you said, we are in history right now. We are defining history. Lin-Manuel, history has its eyes on you and us, all of us. And when you shut that out of the classroom, I'm sure this looked extremely similarly in the 60s. I'm sure this looked extremely similarly in the 50s. We need to break that pattern. We need to get away from not letting the outside world into our classrooms, because the outside world, especially now with social media, TikTok, everything, all these things, it's in their lives and their minds and their bodies. By neglecting it from the classroom, I feel like is doing almost one of the biggest disservices that you can to students, possibly.
They're getting their information from social media. They're getting it from their friends.
Mm-hmm.
If they they don't know. So it's kind of like they're having these conversations amongst themselves. Rumors are getting started. You think you know something, so you're speaking it like it's
Right.
true. But then it's not like it's not already on their forefront. Like you said, they have social media at their fingertips. We
Yep.
didn't have that.
Yep.
We didn't.
We didn't have it. We didn't have it. Not
at
at
our
our fingertips.
I'm like trying to think, and I'm like, no, we didn't have
We had dial.
You know, that kind of actually goes into what was supposed to be one of our questions, and I kind of reflected on it a little bit. But when you reflect on what you learned growing up in your education system, how did that affect you as a person and or teacher?
Ooh.
What?
I would say it affected me in a way of, when I become a teacher, my kids will know, my students will know. And even the fact that we call them our kids, our students, not just a them or a they are our kids. I remember in 6th grade, I asked my teacher, when will we learn about the Trail of Tears and thinking about the Native American Removal Act? I'm in 6th grade. And she said, oh, we don't learn about that. But I thought, if a kid is asking me, when are we going to learn? We're going to learn about it in 2 weeks. We're going to somewhere. And so I was in 6th grade looking for people of color. Although they may not have been Black or African American, I was looking for us to learn more about people of color and their struggles in America. And my teacher just blocked that out. Even if you're thinking about Asian American history, Hispanic history, that is blocked out. And it creates an urgency, like kids want to know more. I wanted to know more. So even if I was reading the American Doll books, I was grabbing all the Black and brown girls. All the other ones got left on Barnes and Noble shelf, but I wanted to know their stories in America and know more. And so you sometimes have kids that want to know more, and then kids become desensitized. Well, what happened? Oh, I never knew that. No one ever taught me that. And they're not lying. No one ever taught them that. So for me, it created a hunger of, I want to know more. Right. And I wasn't dissatisfied with we're not going to learn about that this year as an answer.
Yeah. And she talked about desensitized. That was me. Growing up, I knew I was Black. I knew all of that fun stuff. I knew I was different, but I didn't have a yearning for wanting to learn like my deep roots or wanting to know, because honestly, slavery, once I learned what it was, it like hit something in me that was like, that's too much. Like I can't accept that at that age. And so it affected me as a teacher, because I want to make sure that my younger students correctly understand how to process that in their minds. And so for me, I didn't really start getting like really deep into wanting to learn more probably until Trayvon Martin, to be honest. I knew that things were happening that were not okay, but it was not televised or in your face like it was when, he was murdered. And so for that to take place, that hit me different. And it may have been because now I'm a mother to a Black son, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if Aiden was walking home and this was him, like, my reaction to that, my prayers for that, but my heart and deep yearning to want to learn more happened when it was smack in my face, because we grew up we were very like multicultural. Like I had friends who were of all races, and so therefore it was like, okay, they don't cross the line, I don't bring it up, we're good, everything is fine. And then when things like Trayvon Martin, and then you see it happening repeatedly, now I'm starting to see who are friends and who are not friends, because are you still able to have this conversation with me when it smacks you in the face? And so that kind of starts, boiling into my work atmosphere of not having hard conversations, but just being more open to talking about it. And so therefore, it really did affect me as a teacher, because when I started with preschool, my preschoolers, they were learning Harriet Tubman, like they were learning the basic figures and the differences, because I wanted to make sure that they were comfortable with having those conversations as they got older, that it wasn't something new to them.
Right. But I want you to think about teaching Black history. Would you feel empowered if you know your people were slaves and that's the end of the story? And so I have a student teacher, and I have to tell him in every single lesson, do you leave students feeling empowered? And what do they learn more about themselves? You are teaching a classroom full of Black and brown students. How do they leave our history class feeling empowered? And if you only know your people as being conquered, enslaved, beaten, killed, hung, lynched, not being able to drink at a water fountain, not going to the same schools, and one third of a human being, or three-fourths of a human being, fire hoses being sprayed on them. Yeah. How does it leave a student who empowered? So if you're just teaching that in your class, and I'm surrounded by maybe three-fourths of my classroom being white, I struggled as a person learning that lesson. So although the lessons need to be taught, it needs to be taught in a sense of being empowering. Because I'm not sitting here for that. I'm walking out. Y'all not about to sit at me.
Y'all not gonna look at me from the side like
where the dog's at.
Right.
The two have one joke. Now we're ready. Sorry for all the educators like that. One joke flip.
But that's honestly when it comes to how do you, as an educator, how do you end those conversations? Yeah, they're going to start out that way. Every time that you teach something new or someone new, it's going to start out of what they were not allowed to do. Right. And I find it even with my first graders this year, every conversation, this is what it was. Understand it's what it was, but this is what it is. And how cool is it that they were able to do that? How awesome is it that they were not scared? How, giving back. So now they're looking like, okay, cool.
And look at the game changers. There are people that made the difference in that. And so you can feel empowered that maybe that person reflects me and reflect the changes that I can make in the future. So we're talking about how do you have this conversation with little people, or I don't want to call them little people, K through or pre-K, what do you call them, pre-K to 2, younger students. When you have the conversation with younger students, you maybe find a person that they can identify with and find characteristics about that person that you want that child to have those characteristics in as well.
Right. Yeah. And I think that really goes into period. I think that really goes into, I think it also affects the psyche of Black teachers as well, who might be in settings of, not a diverse setting. And how you combat that, I don't know. But it just goes back into that. You have to just try at least, you have to at least just try to put that foot forward, and the way that things are reflected upon or the way that things are presented, like you said, are just so important. But I do want to ask you guys this question here. What age, because it's kind of tied into it, to what you guys are talking about, what age do you think, it's a loaded question, kids can start talking about race or start talking about Black history?
Before pre-K, as soon as they understand.
Why?
We are the worst. We're like birth, pre-K, before pre-K. Today, start today. But I would say at birth that you can, I had a book and I meant to bring it with me, but it's called Something Happened in My Town. And it's on YouTube. And they're talking about the death of an unarmed young black male. And these kids are probably in kindergarten or first. And the book is written for a younger level. And I think in the story, the little girl who's white, she didn't know that she was white. And she didn't know what happened with African Americans or the history. And so you're sending your kid into a world where we are multiracial, we have history, we have American history, and they don't know. So you're really, and I get to the point, and I'm not a parent yet, but people want to shelter their child. But you can say, hey, if you're an African American child, feel my hair. Not if you're a Caucasian child, but if you're a Black child, you might feel mommy's here, and there's a difference. Or you might talk about the differences in the same, that we may look different on the outside, but we're the same. You may talk about it with ice cream cones, like here's vanilla, here's chocolate, here's strawberry, and just teaching a child differences in things, emotion, empathy, happiness, that we can share joy and fun times together. And then I can feel, all right, you hurt yourself, but I didn't, but I feel so bad that you hurt yourself. So you can start off with like differences in same. You can start off with emotions. But I feel like it's an important conversation to have. I don't want to say from birth. I don't think you're going to be cradling that baby in a hospital.
Like, did you know that you were?
People are from Ghana. I mean, some people do affirmations. You can do the affirmations of our families from Ghana and Mali. And if you went to ancestry.com, like that is super dope.
Watching the baby like, wow, look at your chart.
Yeah.
Affirmations are important.
No, but I definitely to piggyback off of that, you need to start as soon as you can. And I wouldn't, as a parent and as a teacher of younger, I wouldn't go so hard with the child dying, and not for like a beginning level, but like she said, you can definitely start teaching sayings and differences and being able to accept the differences. And so pointing out, like talking about, oh wow, you're a little bit darker than me. Wow, your skin tone is so pretty. Like doing that. And so having those conversations, even with the staff that I have that I'm with now, don't make them feel like they're different, that their difference is bad. Lift them up, encourage them. Wow, I love your hair. My hair can't do that. That's really cool. Even for me, when I'm talking to my students, oh my gosh, I love your puff. That is so cute.
Yeah.
How does it feel? Like giving them that sense of, wow, it's cool to be different. Or wow, this is good. You don't like my hair, so what? My teacher does. Like having that mindset is what's really going to help them, especially in the younger grades, because then they start to develop early a sense of awareness of who they are and being accepted. They're okay with it. I had a very diverse class last year. I taught kindergarten and first grade together. And
wow.
And your mindset, amen.
Girl, I only have like half the class for a couple minutes, and I'm like, okay, no.
But so when it started to come around that I knew I was going to have this topic, I didn't shelter and say, well, since I have kindergartners, I'm not going to explain it to them. But I knew I needed my first graders to really understand. So you're going to get it. So my kindergartners got the same lessons as my first graders. And as we're sitting there having a conversation, it's starting to develop for them. I had one white girl, and she was like, oh, well, I can just bring my books over to her school, and so she can have good books. And I'm like, I'm sorry, sweetheart, you guys wouldn't even be friends. And so then you see all the wheels starting to turn, like, wait, what? I can play tag. I wouldn't be able to play tag with this person, or me and this person couldn't play at the same playground. And I'm like, no. And I had one girl, she said, well, you would still be my teacher, right? And I'm like, no, I would be able to be the teacher of, and then I named every colored student in my class. And she broke down crying. And she was like, what do you mean you won't be my teacher? So she had like take a little break. But it's starting to understand, this is what happens. So small conversations, and then allow them to take it where they want to go. Allow them to say, oh, wait, so I can't color with this person, or I wouldn't be able to sit with this person. Allow them to have that freedom of
analyzing it,
right, understanding what you're actually saying and processing it for themselves. Even the two little girls, one was white, one was black, they were mad that they couldn't do their hair the same way. She was trying to put barrettes in her hair, and they were slipping out, and the other one was trying to do you got a rubber band the barrette. And her hair was stiffening up, it wouldn't move, and I was like, wow, but look at I know, it was so cute. It honestly was so cute. But it's, wow, you guys are both different, but look how cool it is that you guys get to be friends. You still like the same thing. You still love each other as people. That's really cool. Like, so having those conversations early is what's needed, because now they're going to get older and they're not going to look at someone as, oh, wait, let me not talk to them because they are different. No, okay, you're different. I'm able to have these conversations. I'm not scared of it. I'm open to it. And that's the development that I wanted to start, and that I encourage for, especially in the younger levels, of having those conversations and not being afraid of it. Because you can have times where you're like, am I going too hard? Is this too much? But the world is too hard. The world is too much.
And don't you have those moments in all scenarios as a teacher? I mean, as a teacher, no matter what the lesson is, I mean, you're always having reflection points. Oh, did I really get that across well? Did I, was my delivery okay? I mean, whether you're talking about, I'm talking about kicking the ball, and as a phys ed teacher, I'm like, oh, did I really like explain that well? And so it's just kind of like understanding, I feel like, within yourself, and possibly this is a little bit more of the work on the white teachers end, but giving yourself the grace to not be perfect in it, but at least try. At least try. You're not going to be perfect in it right away. I mean, I'm not a race expert. Nobody, I mean, people are, yes, obviously race experts, diversity, equity, inclusion is their training. But like I said earlier, we're always learning. We're always learners, no matter what it is that we're talking about. So I always just think that encouragement of just trying, to not try is almost unacceptable. And like you said, it just, it does more harm than good. I had a teacher say to me actually this week, as I was telling her about this talk, she had said, it is, it's so important. She always shares like really good resources and books with me too. And this is a white teacher, and she was saying, she's like, it's so important that we do teach them, about Black history and different cultures in general at a young age, because when they get older, they may not believe us. And that really kind of sat with me, and I've never really heard anyone say it like that. Like, you get to a point where you don't believe it. And I think I saw somebody in the chat say that it's a rude awakening. I think it was my mom. Shout out to my mom for being here. But, it's a rude awakening when you're a teenager, and it's like, what do you mean? Like, I have white privilege? What do you mean I wasn't, and like I said, that video of that girl, things like that arise. And I really reflect. I don't know if you guys have any reflection points on that, but that really stuck with me when she said that. She's like, you have to teach it at a young age because it's the truth. It's the accuracy. It's what happened is happening. And when you get older, and then you're all of a sudden bombarded with this truth, you're bombarded with slavery and all these other things, you may not believe it.
Some don't believe it. If you think about the Holocaust, some don't believe it.
Yeah.
And so that is a really good point. I've never thought of it that way. So I'm going to hold on to that, because if you reflect on history, some stuff I can't believe they thought, acted, they did. Yeah. It's unbelievable that people the mindset of people during that time. So I like that. I might have to light a pen on my later.
But that's a really good thought. That's a really good thought. Even for it to come from a white teacher. Because when you think about it, there are a lot of people who this whole topic and scenario and the realization that this is real smacked them in the face in this pandemic, because the world was shut down and this happened. You had no outlet of sports or being busy or going out. It was in your face 24/7. And so a lot of people had a rude awakening of, wow, this is real. Wow, I feel really bad. Is this how you feel all the time? Like, you have a lot of people that started to have those conversations and then realize, I think it's amazing that for those who realize that they were living in a bubble, that their bubble is popped, they're ready to still learn more.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really cool about it. Like, my church did an amazing job with that. Once it hit, they called everybody in the staff to have a huge Zoom meeting of, how are you guys feeling? This was our take. We didn't, not that my pastors lived in a bubble, but my one pastor, his wife, she came from a multicultural church where everybody got to hang out together. And so it didn't hit her that this was something that affected people so harshly. And so when she realized it, she called me and was like, oh my gosh, like, how can we help? What can we do? what should we do? And so that was for you to have your world kind of flipped upside down, but you still want to come on top to help others and to really understand. That's a really big thing. So kudos to her. I need to.
Yeah. Yeah, so I can share. She has some pretty good resources too. So I know I'm like so upset. I'm like, 10 more minutes left before we get kicked off. But I really want to visit this quote. Like I said earlier, and if you're rewatching this, please go check out. There was a video posted on Do It Now yesterday from one of our committee members, Jared Hudock, did a phenomenal presentation on this topic from a white teacher's point of view. We will be putting that up on our YouTube and things like that, but definitely for now, go check it out. It's on our Facebook and our Instagram. And it's just phenomenal. And, I saw him just kind of post in there, and I want to read this quote and then kind of get some reflection on it. This is from Beverly Tatum, who's the author of Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together Together in the Cafeteria? Another excellent tool. And her quote is this. It's an excerpt, so there's some pieces missing. Sorry, Jared. I know Jared's gonna be upset about that. But it says, active racist behavior is equivalent to walking fast on the conveyor belt. The person engaged in active racist behavior has identified with the ideology of white supremacy and is moving with it. Passive racist behavior is equivalent to standing still on the walkway. But unless they are walking actively in the opposite direction at a speed faster than the conveyor belt, unless they are actively anti-racist, they will find themselves carried along with others. So my question and reflection point with that, and hello to everybody who are just now joining us. This will be recorded and you'll be able to rewatch it again. So how do we actively, I know, and I'm sure it's going to take us over our time, but how do we actively address being anti-racist as a culture and teachers? So notice I said we, being anti-racist. I did say that as a Black woman. I said, how do we? We had some notes on this between the three of us, so I know this is getting ready to get nice and juicy. Who wants to start?
Go ahead. I'm gonna keep it short. So we as Black women, I do not feel like it is our obligation or our right to have to educate others. Yes, we need to, call out BS when we see it, but I think it is the duty of people who are white to call out their fellow white brothers and sisters, or just call out other white folks, because it will come from a different place. It seems like, especially women of color, we get labeled attitude, you're angry, you're non-compliant, and I don't have time for that conversation in the boardroom or in a staff meeting. And I've definitely had those uncomfortable conversations of I had, white people trying to say, oh, here's literature, read this, read that. But unless a person is truly open to learning more, you can send them all the emails on the staff post you want to. They will not open that email. So you truly have to have one-on-one small conversations and build community, build relationship in order for that person's mindset to change. Me telling you as a woman of color, if you are exhibiting some of those behaviors, I will not change your mind at all, unless you have a relationship with me, which if you were my friend, you would not be exhibiting those behaviors. But Kirby, go ahead. I don't feel like it's our duty or responsibility to assist you with that.
Okay, so we're not too far off.
Okay, go ahead. Let's hear it.
Differences. It's not too much. I agree. I don't feel that it's my place to educate you because, one, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still learning myself, and so we can travel this journey together, but if you think that you're going to come to me and I'm going to give you a history lesson, I'm not doing that, and I don't feel that it's my place. Now, I do think that it is our place when we have those conversations where people are approaching us with concerns or questions, that we are obligated to steer them in the direction. I mean, think about it. There are so many books and resources that you can become overwhelmed. If you, like we said, But there's so many. But think about it. These are good ones. But if I've never heard of this, and this is my first time even realizing that my bubble is popped, I'm not, this probably isn't even going to be like my top 3 books.
You can come get a children's book. There's pictures, there's animations, there's cartoons.
But this is the education that I feel like they would need, or that they're needing help getting. Because if you think you can get overwhelmed to where you shut down.
You can.
And so therefore, if your bubble is popped and you have no idea where to even start, I am going to go to my Black coworker and I am going to say, hey, now the approach is what
you better come real nice. You better
it comes out of the approach, because you need to say, hey, you know, I understand what is happening and I want to learn more. Now, I do agree, I'm 100%, if you want to have a one-on-one, and I tell like the staff members at my church, my pastors, the people I work with, if you want to have a one-on-one conversation to know how I feel as a Black woman, a Black mom, and with a Black son in America, if you want to know how I'm feeling about that and to get a better understanding, go ahead and ask me all the questions that you want, because this is how I feel. But what you cannot do is go to the next Black person and assume that they feel the same way.
Right.
Because when you go to a Black male, his experiences are completely different than mine. Completely different. When you go to, I know one of the girls on our staff, her experience was completely different than mine. So you still have to be aware and not as open. Don't think, oh, well, I already had the conversation with Kirby and she was so open and cool.
Right.
One, everybody is going to be like that. And 2, that everyone has the same experience, because we don't.
Right. Absolutely. No, okay, that was a little bit more on the same page than I thought we were when we discussed the other night.
Because I know we're running short on time, but if you want somewhere to start with students, it's a book called Strange Fruit, and there are multiple volumes. It's by Joel Christian Gill, Strange Fruit. Really good read for adults, for children. Something more for adults is Black Fortunes by Shamari Wills. Thank you. And then we have The Promised Land, The Great Migration and How It Changed America by Nicholas Lehman.
Awesome.
So just a couple things. If you want some summer reading, some spring break reading, I think those are great places to start.
Yeah. And you know, speaking of books, we have a Do It Now original culturally relevant book list. There are tons. I think it's like 800 books or something like that. So please, it's in our link tree. Go check out our bio. It's in in our link tree. Our bio, it's in our link tree, in our bio. Words are hard. And it is full. It's category. It's in all different types of different categories, reading levels. Please go, topics. Please go check that out. It is definitely, I believe those books are even on there. But please, education is absolutely 100% key. And these conversations are also 100% key, especially since, and I just looked this up today, Black teachers are only 7% of the teachers in America, which needs to change. We need to get more Black people into education. We need to get more Black teachers into white schools. And we need to be better agents of anti-racism and breaking down Eurocentric curriculum systems. Sadie, Kirby, this has been just absolutely amazing. I thank you guys so much for being here with me tonight.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Absolutely. The knowledge that you guys dropped on this live is just woo. I can't wait to rewatch this because I know I missed so many things. So I'm just so thankful for you. Do It Now family. Those of you who may be joining us for the first time, we welcome you into our community. We welcome you into our conversation. We are so thankful to have your support throughout the year. Please check out the rest of our events for Black History Month. We have an African dance class next Friday night hosted by Do It Now committee member Tati. I know Tati's in here, one of our execs. She's going to have an amazing African dance lesson. I'm going to be sweating. I will be doing it. I'm so excited. And some other talks and amazing things coming up. So please tune in. You guys are always welcome to be a part of these conversations. And yeah, do it now. everybody.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. Check out our link tree. Go check out our Instagram. Give us a follow. Share it with your friends, your family, especially your white friends and family. Get them part of this conversation, breaking down those barriers.
Don't be afraid.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so surprised Instagram hasn't kicked us off. I'm sure it's like counting down. Thank you guys so much again. Bye, everybody. Happy Black History Month.